Hello, everyone. This is Alan Fine, and I'm here with Alison Metcalf, who's the Executive Vice President for North America and Australia for Tourism Ireland. We just had a meeting today where we were talking about what's it like as they're opening up and entering stage 3 and looking for stage 4 and thinking about tourism at a time when some countries can't even go there. And we're going to talk about that and more on Insider Travel Report. Alison, thanks for talking to us.
Great to be back, Alan.
So, where are you and how are you?
I'm very well, and I have to say the entire Tourism Ireland team is working really well remotely. I was in New York, but I've actually retreated north of the border. I'm actually in Toronto, which is where I worked before I moved to New York. So I have a little bit more space here to just to kind of work remotely and social distance. But yeah, we're all doing really well, and the entire North American team. So we're staying in touch, and we're continuing to keep Ireland top of mind amongst all of our key stakeholders.
But you're not in Ireland. That was what
I'm not in Ireland. I would love to be in Ireland. I have never been away from Ireland for quite so long, but I'm sure many people can say that. I mean, for those of us in the travel business, we're used to traveling a lot. And clearly by this time of the year, I would have been in Ireland 3 or 4 times. But listen, when the time is right, we'll all be back.
Okay. Let's talk about how Ireland is faring through this whole thing. Let's go through maybe a little short history.
Yeah, well, I think like most countries, I mean, Ireland went into lockdown. We actually went into lockdown fairly early. Hard to believe, but we went into lockdown just ahead of St. Patrick's Day, which is normally the start of our main.
Remember.
So that was a pretty
hard blow.
A hard blow, and that of course is when the main tourism season starts. So we went into lockdown around the 16th of March and have been in lockdown like many places for the last sort of 14 weeks or so. But having said that, I mean, Ireland has done pretty well. It's had a very cautious approach to this. People have been very law abiding in terms of the restrictions that were put in place, and as a result of that, the plan to lift restrictions, which was originally a 5-stage plan, has been accelerated again because I think everybody's good behaviour. The country has flattened its curve a lot quicker than it thought. So we're moving into stage 3, and the big day was yesterday, June the 29th, when
congratulations.
Thank you. Which is where most of the hospitality sector was able to open. So hotels, attractions, restaurants, cafes, and bars that serve significant food. Other bars that don't serve food will open in the final stage in in July the 20th. In Northern Ireland, because obviously Tourism Ireland does market the entire island of Ireland, a similar situation. I think both jurisdictions have handled the COVID crisis very well. Most of the tourism and hospitality sector will open on July the 3rd, so that's just later this week. So overall, there have been about 25,000 cases in the Republic of Ireland, about 1,700 deaths, and in Northern Ireland, 5,700 cases and 550 deaths. So reasonably, it's been handled well, and I think, like so many countries, but public health and people's safety has been number one priority. And it was only actually on June the 29th that people living in the Republic of Ireland could go beyond 20 kilometres. So for the first time, everybody is able to travel around the island, and obviously the recovery that we will see in the short term will be led by domestic tourism.
So tell me about the Tourism Recovery Task Force and the Aviation Recovery Task Force, please.
Yeah, well, as you mentioned, Alan, I mean, obviously the tourism sector is vitally important to the Irish economy. In the Republic of Ireland, it accounts for 1 in 10 jobs, so 265,000 jobs. It employs people right around the entire Ireland, and it's very important, particularly in rural areas, and the same thing applies in Northern Ireland. So both North and South, we have 2 tourism recovery task forces, which are being led in Northern Ireland by the Minister for the Economy, and is being led by an independent chair in the Republic of Ireland. And this has brought together industry to really look at what we need to do to not only restart the industry, but what do we need to restart, rebuild, and redesign what we do going forward. One thing we know, I mean, the industry has been decimated. As a sector, it's been terribly badly hit, and it's going to take a long time to recover. But the important thing is, given the importance of tourism to the economy, there is a plan in place. Ireland as an island, really important that we have good air access. And as you will know, over the last 5, 6, 7 years, we've seen significant increase in direct air access from North America to the island of Ireland, and specifically to Dublin and Shannon. Clearly, aviation is going to drive that recovery, and it's really important that we adopt a strategic approach to ensuring that routes come back and we get the capacity back needed to drive that recovery. So again, at a senior government level, there's an aviation recovery task force put in place, and representation and a report has been, and recommendations have been presented to government in the hope that we will see some support, and we will certainly see some actions taken over the next few weeks. Alan, it's probably fair to just point out we have a new government now in the Republic of Ireland, a new coalition government and a new programme for government that was just approved at the weekend. So we do have a new Taoiseach, we do have a new Minister for Tourism. So that is very good news, because obviously during the COVID crisis, there has been a caretaker government in place, and they've handled the situation, I think, very well. But we now have a new minister, and we do have a programme of government that has been approved. So we look forward as Tourism Ireland, also working in partnership with our industry colleagues to brief the minister, and to just highlight the importance and the critical importance of ongoing support to ensure that the industry survives, not only through the summer, but it can survive and sustain through what is, we'll be heading into the winter months not that long from now.
Okay, so we're talking about Catherine Martin, who's part of the Green Party. And so we were discussing how at a time when when the new luxury is space, you certainly offer that. Your country has great wide open spaces and natural wonders. And so we were postulating that that would be another attraction.
Absolutely, and I think we're already beginning to do some research now. We're trying to assess consumer sentiment globally, but particularly here in the United States. And what that research is already pointing to is that people are looking to reconnect with nature. They're looking to enjoy the great outdoors, enjoy activities, cycling, walking, hiking, biking. And Ireland offers all of those types of experiences. They were there pre-COVID, and they're certainly going to be there post-COVID. And I think that's where we have a great opportunity, because we've got lots of wide open spaces, and the challenge for us is to make sure that we can deliver those wonderfully unique, not only active, but uniquely Irish experiences in those settings. So if you're out in the countryside, you automatically socially distance.
And I find it wonderful that we were trying to get people to go off the beaten path, and now that's the place of choice.
It was. I mean, we had a strategy that was designed to get people to go off the beaten track, and also to travel in the off-peak, to try and sort of spread the benefit of tourism. And I think those trends that were there before are going to be even more accentuated going forward. We didn't have a problem with over-tourism pre-COVID in Ireland, and that was one reason we had embarked upon a much more proactive strategy to promote some of those lesser-known areas and attractions. But I think that's what people are going to want going forward. And I don't think over-tourism is going to be a problem for many destinations for the next 2 or 3 years anyway.
But I think it'll be funny, though, at some point we'll be saying, hey, you've been everywhere, come to Dublin. You haven't seen Dublin yet.
I think everybody is still going to want to visit Dublin and other cities in terms of the cultural offerings. But I think what you're going to see is, those experiences, the attractions, the way they are delivered will be different in terms of the new normal. I think what people are looking to see, certainly before they start traveling, is they're going to look to see what countries, and specifically within each country, what businesses are doing to keep visitors when they travel from overseas, what you're doing to not only to improve their experience, but to keep them safe. So we have published 2 safety charters, a safety charter for the Republic of Ireland, and in Northern Ireland, the Tourism Northern Ireland have produced their own safety charter called We're Good to Go. The good news is that the standards are broadly the same. So I think it'll be very reassuring to people when they visit Ireland, whether in a hotel or whether they're in an attraction, they can see those safety charters and those certificates displayed. Public health and safety and hygiene and sanitation is going to be number one. And I just think that is going to be, health, green, clean and safe, I think is the new luxury. And those that do it best are going to win out.
And how do we see these charters?
So these we will be sharing information with travel agents. There'll be a webinar on July the 14th that Tourism Ireland will be hosting together with our partners at Fáilte Ireland, which is the National Development Agency in the Republic of Ireland, and also our colleagues at Tourism Northern Ireland. And what we want to do there is specifically take people through the highlights, the practical things of what each sector is doing. So when you arrive in a hotel in Ireland, what are the things you would expect to see, or what would the things that your clients would expect to see? At an attraction, what will that experience look like? And there'll be a lot more timed entry and things like that. So the experience will actually be, in many regards, be better. So we will be sharing that practical information with agents. We'll also be then rolling out a consumer campaign to share that directly with consumers, because what our research shows, and I think it's just human nature, we know that health and safety is going to determine whether people travel, but ultimately will be experience will determine where they travel. So we need to get the balance right between sharing the practical information and reminding people of all the great experiences that will still be there when they're able to travel again.
All true, but now we have two big problems. We have a 14-day quarantine, and we have the countries that are allowed to come to the EU. Let's discuss that for a little bit.
Yeah, well, it's a very borders and a very complex issue. I mean, I suppose firstly, as it relates to Ireland, there is a 14-day quarantine period still in effect for all travellers, including Irish citizens returning from any other destination. That's in effect right now until July the 9th. It's under constant review. And we also know from research that quarantine is the biggest barrier to travel. So when the time is right, and again, we know that this is being looked at, it's being reviewed, it's being informed by the public health data and epidemiological data. So when we know more about that, we'll certainly let people know. As far as the list of 15 countries that the European Commission announced today, and essentially what that was is a list of green countries, so countries that would welcome Americans or welcome travelers from 15 countries. It does not include the United States. And I suppose, again, it's very complex. These are countries in the Schengen zone. So the UK and Ireland is not within the Schengen zone. But essentially the key criteria to get onto that list was countries needed to have a coronavirus infection rate that was at a close or to below the EU average to enable EU borders to be opened up to third countries or countries outside of Europe. So I think the EU is trying to approach this in a coordinated way, but ultimately it's up to the individual member states to decide who on that list of 15 countries they are willing to welcome. The other factor that doesn't always get mentioned is the reciprocal nature of this. So whilst the EU has a list of 15 countries, and it does include countries like Australia and Canada and Japan, obviously there's no guarantee that those countries will reciprocate. So there's obviously those bilateral discussions that have to be had. But the good news, I suppose, is that the list will be reviewed every 2 weeks, and I think as numbers and as data changes, there's no reason why the US won't make it onto that list. But at the moment, it isn't on the list.
As I think I've read that China is allowed if they're reciprocal.
Yes, and I believe that's the case. Yeah, I haven't seen all of the detail.
One of the requirements is that it is reciprocal.
Yeah, and it does need to be reciprocal. And I suppose if you look at it from a commercial perspective, if you're an airline, you need to bring passengers both ways. And as long as if you're traveling from a country on that list, and you can travel freely without restriction to a country in Europe, if you still need to quarantine when you come back to your country of residence, that also poses some barriers and restrictions. So it's a very complicated and complex situation, but I do suspect over the next 2 or 3 weeks, certainly within the next month, it will change again. We will have greater clarity, hopefully, and we will see some movement both on what happens in Ireland and also what happens at an EU-wide level. But as I say, that is for the Schengen countries at the moment.
So, Alison, what do you think is going to happen with the airlines? What's going to happen with Lyft?
Well, obviously we need to get some of the travel restrictions lifted, but once that is sort of sorted out, I think we've seen great increase in our direct air access over the last 5 or 6 years. I don't think we're going to see all 16, 18 gateways coming back all at once, where we had direct access from 16 and 18 gateways over the last year or so to Ireland. But I think you're going to see core hubs come back. I think, New York, Boston, Chicago. I mean, Aer Lingus are continuing to fly those routes even during the lockdown, with some passengers, but primarily, cargo and repatriation routes. I would be hopeful we will see some West Coast access coming back. I think what you're going to see is, there's a lot of analysis being undertaken by the airlines, but also by, the airport authorities, just looking at the profile of passengers on individual routes, and they'll be looking to see, based on the profile of individual routes, which routes they think are going to come back fastest, and where they feel they have the best opportunity to stimulate demand. So we at Tourism Ireland will be looking to work very, very closely with all of the airlines as they look to recover and restore access and to help them stimulate demand for Dublin. So we will invest in those markets where there's direct air access. And I think we know direct air access is very important, but I think post-COVID, I think the option to get to a destination is. So we will see what happens, but as access comes back on, and I think you'll see airlines build back access based on demand. So our role will be to help them stimulate that demand and obviously work to let them know what Ireland is doing on the ground to keep passengers and clients safe. I know the airlines are working very, very hard to make sure that the journey, the end-to-end experience, when arriving at the airport through the flight and arriving in destination is going to be as safe as possible.
So that's the other issue. What's it like getting to the airport? And how do we all figure that one out? But that's for another conversation.
Probably is, and I think everybody's going to have to make their own decisions, whether you drive, you take an Uber, you take a taxi. I think when you're traveling in any kind of public transportation, I think, the best modus operandi is to wear some kind of face protection. I think it's a respectful thing to do in a confined space. So let's see what happens. I think watch this space.
All right, so let's review a little and bring the travel advisors into it and wrap up with what should travel advisors be doing to facilitate this this partnership. I assume that what they should be doing is working, or let's give them more information on how to work with you, learn about the safety, get their clients to feel confident. Let's discuss that, please.
Yeah, well, I think, travel agents are very important to us, and during lockdown, we've certainly not gone dark. We've been conducting many webinars, and we've seen terrific response from travel advisors. Some of those webinars have covered different types of travel, luxury travel, different parts of the country. So we've had a really extensive educational program. We've also been trying to share virtual travel experiences with those travel advisors and give them as much practical information as we can. I think the July 14th webinar is going to be critical for them. That's going to give them the first sight really of the detailed information, but it'll also give them an opportunity to ask questions, which I think is going to be vitally important when they're advising their clients.
And how do they access that event? Is it through the website?
So we will be sending out invitations, and we will put some information on our trade website. So the couple of resources I should draw their attention to. The first is on Ireland.com. So again, I would advise not only agents to go there, but also their clients, because they can get the latest information for both Northern Ireland and the Republic of Ireland as it relates to the COVID travel situation. We also have a travel website, which they can find at trade.ireland.com. And again, you'll find a lot of great resources there, also access to our specialist program. And we will be uploading the details of those safety charters.
Okay. Do you have any final words that you want to just tell our now, again, over 100,000 travel advisors who are eagerly looking in and looking forward to visiting and sending people?
Yeah, I just think that all I can say to you is that we really value your support and your business in the past. We're here to support you. We know that there will be pent-up demand from American travelers to head back to Ireland. We know from some of our research that US travelers are going to find great comfort with the familiar. So they will be looking to go back to destinations perhaps that they've been to before, they're perhaps interested in staying in places they've been to before. Again, all in the interest of feeling comfortable and safe in that destination. So we at Tourism Ireland are here to support you. We will be rolling out a program of virtual events and platforms, and maybe hopefully some in-person events towards the end of the year. We just have to sort of take that one stage at a time. But please reach out to us through the website. We have a Facebook trade Facebook page now as well. We have the trade team in New York are still very active. So please, any queries that you have, we're here to support you. And we really do appreciate your business. We know we're going to come back strong. We're a very resilient industry wherever we're selling. And certainly in Ireland, the importance of tourism to our economy is absolutely vital. So we will be back in business as soon as we can with our campaigns, and we'll keep you informed as the situation as it unfolds. But I can tell you we have a plan. We're moving forward, and we look forward to working with you again.
Well, we wish you well, and we miss Ireland, and we hope that we can all figure this out and start traveling again. Thank you, Alison.
Thank you, Alan. We look forward to welcoming everybody back.
And this is Alan Fine for Insider Travel Report.